Alright guys, I just wanted to catch you guys up where I've been at on the Q lathe recently. I've kind of taken a little break from making some videos. It's always just one step extra of trying to do something while you're learning a new task. Just makes everything a little bit harder. So I wanted to catch you up on what I've been doing over the last month and show you a Q extension that I made for a good friend. And yeah, so let's show you what that looks like. Made it out of this carbon fiber tube. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Of course, it doesn't like to focus. This is called I think it's called a twirl fabric carbon fiber. It's 30 millimeter outside diameter and 27 millimeter or 28 millimeter inside diameter. So I was making a Q extension for a buddy's Sugartree Q, and super thankful that somebody trusts me to let them play with a famous Q maker's Q like that. But the Q extension that he had made was carbon fiber as well, but it was only 8 inches long, which is pretty long. But he wanted a longer one, so I basically bought a 36-inch carbon fiber tube, cut it up, and I had to add some material to it to make it build up the material, because 30 millimeter, the butt on his Q was somewhere around like the 32.5 millimeter mark. So I just made sure I added some material to the carbon fiber to build it up, which did increase the weight a little bit, but because we were adding some end caps and a joint as well, is also going to be a little bit heavier than it needed to be. And I just didn't have the resources to buy a carbon fiber tube that was closer to the outside diameter of the butt of his Q. So 30 millimeters was as close as I could get, and I said it'd be easy to make it a little bit bigger, which turned out that was not the case. It took a lot of coats and a lot of sanding and smoothing out and everything. And the carbon fiber was just really interesting to work with as well. So learned a lot of lessons from that. You can kind of see here with the carbon fiber how when I cut it, it's not the smoothest cut. I made sure my tool was super sharp. Sharpened it on my angle grinder, or not my angle grinder, but my bench grinder over here, and but it just wouldn't. With a razor sharp tool, it would get about halfway through and start to heat up. My blade would start to smoke, and this thing would start to split on the inside, and the little fibers would come loose and everything. And then I'm sharpening the tool again and going back in at it. So I'm glad I didn't have to make too many cuts on this stuff. And honestly, I don't know if my little mid-sized Q lathe back here really enjoyed turning the carbon fiber. So I don't know if I might wait to work on that more in the future until I get something bigger. But ideally, I prefer working with wood over carbon fiber. So, all right, well, let me show you what I've done, and we'll let you guys judge for yourself how it looks. So here you can see this was probably after like my third or fourth time sanding back smooth. I'm probably about 25 coats of CA glue on here, and I did a base coat of 5-minute Devcon epoxy as well, and then sanded that smooth and went back. I did find this quick fast activator on Amazon. It ended up being a lifesaver in the end to get my CA glue to harden. And then here you can see these little lips that were created from all the coats of CA glue that I had to get off there. So but here's my final product after I cleaned everything up, got it polished down to 12,000 grit, and I actually think it turned out pretty nice. In the sunlight you can see there's not a lot of blims or anything like that. You'd have to look really hard to find any kind of flecks or specks in there, so. Still feels pretty light, so let's see what it weighs. All right, guys, 14-inch extension, carbon fiber with what must be 100 coats of clear on it. 5.16 ounces. Brass pin. Not too bad for a super long extension. Got it off, guys. Clean this up too. Not perfect, but I could spend another hour on it if I wanted to, but I don't want to spend another hour on it. And since it's going to live in the case most of the time, I just don't really think it's worth spending a lot of time on a job I'm charging like 75 bucks for. And it cost me about 50 bucks in materials. So that's one of the reasons why I don't really want to spend more time on it. But I think it looks really good. Okay, got some boards I want to mill up and turn into some turning blanks. I got some real nice curly maple. I'll show you guys here at maybe at the end of the video what that looks like. It's real nice stuff. I took my first trip to the North Carolina hardwood store out in Gibsonville, North Carolina. Not a sponsored video, of course, but I was able to walk away with some really nice looking blanks, some walnut blanks and a couple mahogany blanks. And while I was there, I bought a curly maple board. That's honestly maybe one of the most curly boards I've ever seen for maple. So I'm really excited to kind of cut that up and make some turning squares out of it. It's already kiln dried, and I put my moisture meter on it, and it was like between 5.2 and 5.8% moisture content. So I think honestly, you know, once I let it acclimate to my environment here, I should be able to start working with it pretty soon. I hope so. So I'm gonna wait a little bit of time, maybe 6 or 8 weeks minimum, just to let it get used to my air conditioner here. And I have a humidifier that runs here inside too, so that could you know, affect the wood. It might move a little bit on me, but I just want to make sure that, you know, it's nice and stable before I start cutting on it. So a little bit of a mess here, guys, but these are the blanks that I got from the North Carolina hardwood store. These two top ones here are the walnut. I went for this interesting walnut here. It's got a little bit of the crotch wood, or got a little bit of the inner wood in there. That's what makes it that white color, which looks awesome, I think. So it might look pretty cool on a cue. And then I went for one that had more of a straight grain on it, just to give me an option for a little bit darker of a color. Now these are mahogany. I went with this one here. You can see these striations here. They're a little bit more pronounced on the other side there, but I'm hoping that once I plane that out and turn it down, that will actually come through in the grain pattern of the wood itself. So I'm hoping that will look pretty good. And then again with this bottom one here, I went for a darker piece that also has more of a straight grain on it there, just to give myself some options. I also forgot to mention it, but I picked up some Purple Heart. Probably the heaviest board I've ever picked up in my life, but I got 2 35-inch pieces of Purple Heart there that I'll process up into some turning blanks sort of like this, so that I can play around with in the future. I don't really plan on making shafts or anything out of it. I just want to have some options for some handles and butts and forearms, that sort of thing. Maybe some joint protectors. That, you know, whatever I can make out of it, it's going to be fine with me. I just wanted to get some while I was there. All right, guys, if anybody ever asks why I call this place the paint room, this is pretty much why. Used to do a little bit of street art stuff, and so this was always my test working space. So when you're looking around the videos, you'll probably see a lot of interesting bad artwork on the walls. But that's what I've turned into my workshop now since I've kind of started moving on to woodworking. But I've been woodworking actually my whole adult life, I would say. I took 3 years of a carpentry class in high school and was probably supposed to go on and be a carpenter of some sort. I think that was the plan for the school, but I ended up doing other things, and then here I am now in my 40s, and I'm falling back into more woodwork, more detailed stuff though with pool sticks. So I think that's part of the fun in it, and at least I have a little bit of a good background as far as like safety training and that sort of thing, because I did take those classes in school. But take a look at this curly maple that I picked up. It's got some good grain in it. It's pretty. It's got a pretty good tight grain pattern to it. Here's the other end of the board. We had to cut it to get it in my car. I like this little piece here. You know, some people might not like the blemish, but you know, you can fill it with a little epoxy and make it look pretty nice there. So it's pretty good grain, nice curls all the way through, pretty uniform ribbon too. I mean, it looks almost you know, pretty even with how far apart the curls actually are. So I'm pretty excited to see, you know, once I open it up a little more, how it's going to look. And then let's take a look at the sides. Everything's a little messy here. Like I said, it's an art studio, but so you can see here, get a good idea of how this looks. This piece here is pretty fantastic looking if you were making a forearm or a handle. Just nice curls all the way through. So I think I did a pretty good job of picking a board. This is 8/4, of course, so it's 2 inches thick, 8 1/8 inches wide. But super excited. I should be able to get quite a few. Just the smaller board I calculated last night, I can get two. This board here, I can get two. I can cut it down to, I believe, 32 inches and then rip it, and I should be able to get 8 30-inch blanks or turning squares out of it. So that's enough to make quite a few cues. So here we'll probably have 16, you know, up to this point, and then I think I only have about 25 or 26 inches above that. But I'm going to lay out based on the features of the board that I like the most, make my cuts, and then rip it, and that way I know exactly where, you know, I'm trying to make the most out of my grain pattern that I like. I'm not just going to cut it wherever on 30 inches exactly or whatever, because I want to make sure that I include the grain that I want for the parts that I'm planning on making. So that's my plan with these guys. But I think they look pretty cool. I was super excited to see they probably had about 15 boards of curly there in 8/4. I mean, none of them were even close to this one. I think I was really shocked to see that it was, you know, still there, and actually it's actually on top. But I did dig through the rest of the boards there just to confirm that it was the most curly of what they had in stock, and that's pretty much what I walked away with. Some of you might be wondering what this a board like this might cost too. So this was a 12-foot board, I believe, and I think it was about $9.98 a board foot. That's, you know, so about $10 a board foot there. So it's about a little under $120 board, which, but if you turn it down into blanks, you know, if I was to sell it or turn it around, probably could get more than that out of it once I processed it. But I didn't have too much sticker shock for the quality of the maple curls in this one. So I'm sure I'll have some sticker shock in the future, but this one wasn't too bad. $100 for a board is pretty crazy, you know, if you ask somebody that doesn't do woodworking. But for those of you out there that buy a lot of hardwood, you know, that's pretty much a standard price for kiln dried wood. All right, guys, so that pretty much sums up where I've been for the last month, and gives you a little idea of what's coming next down the road. There's some hints laying around as well, you know, that you might see and be able to determine what's happening. This guy back here might be something coming up. I got some other extra pieces that were over here behind me, standing up, these two guys here. So yeah, so it's been busy. People are, you know, receiving my work well around town, and that's always a good thing. And so I'm just looking forward to getting on to the next project, and always enjoy standing at the lathe. So talk to you guys later, and I hope everyone's doing well. Thanks, guys.